Welcome to the first episode of Season 3 of Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
And I hope you got all of your fun Target shopping done and decided which colors go with which school subjects because we're headed back to school.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited for this. It's fall, back to school for real life, not for us because we are done with that.
And also specifically only in the U.S. because not all places go back to school at the same time, as I learned from working at a global company.
Yeah, so sorry if you feel excluded, but we are very excited to be reading children's and YA historical fiction this season.
Yes. So this is going to be a big season of rereads for us in a lot of different capacities. A lot of books I have not thought about in probably, 20 years. I'm 26 now. I'm old. I can say 20 years.
And honestly, just going through the list that we have compiled, this might be our most stacked season yet for award winners.
Yeah, I would say. We also have I think it's 40-something books total this season.
I think it's 40 exactly.
You're going to get a pretty good preview this episode because sometimes we're reading more than one book for an episode because a lot of them are much shorter than what we have been dealing with in the past. And because of that, or not because of that, but because they're kind of a different style in a lot of ways, we are going to be taking a look at our star calculator this episode because there might be some needs for adjustment here.
Yes. So I have a few ideas. Erin has a few ideas. We're going to discuss the topic of the episode and then see what feels right.
Yes.
And the topic of the episode, this is one of those multi-book episodes.
Hell yeah.
We are starting off with a juggernaut of the children's historical fiction genre, American Girl.
To honor, to pay homage to reminisce on our brunch at the American Girl Doll Cafe where we accidentally ate bagels beforehand and we're not hungry at all.
No, we were picking at our salads, but we did chug pink lemonade.
Oh my God, I think I had 6 glasses.
And our table mate at brunch was Samantha. Unfortunately, Samantha won't be joining us this season, but we have read all for today's episode of Josefina.
Which this is really exciting because this was my first venture into American Girl Doll, but we'll get to that later. I think we have some catching up to do.
Absolutely.
I see we both marked that we both did the same exact exciting thing this week.
Well, I figure if we did it together, we might as well talk about it together.
Grace and I had a little girls' date last night. And if you feel it, chase it. We saw Twisters.
And now you might hear that and think, wow, I know they record in advance, but that's really far. No, the movie has been out for a long time, and we were very late to it.
I called my mom afterwards, and she's like, isn't that on streaming? And I'm like, I think this was the very last day it was in theaters.
Tuesday night.
Yes, Tuesday, September 3rd. So we were recording this on September 4th.
Well, also, Tuesday, a cheap day to go to the movies.
God. Yeah, so I signed up. It's this weird little, not weird as in cool and artsy, just this kind of grungy theater in DC. Mm-hmm. And it was if you sign up for our free loyalty program, we'll give you tickets for $8.75 on Tuesdays.
It was amazing.
It was so great. We got our candy from the thrift store. We got our candy from CVS beforehand. We were ready.
Yes, and we very much enjoyed Twisters, and apparently it's on streaming, so we would highly recommend that you watch it.
Yeah, we had a great amount of fun with it. However, like I said to you last night, I'm scared that if Santiago watches it, he is going to try and become a storm chaser.
Yeah, probably. That seems like something he would do.
All right. What was your favorite read of the season break? We had a pretty decent, I'd say our break was probably most of the summer.
Yeah, we have been off for a while. My favorite read that I read, I'm looking at yours. I know what it is. So they're both historical fiction, which is very on brand. What? Isn't yours?
Mine is dystopian apocalyptic.
Okay.
What did you think mine was?
I thought it was about World War II this whole time. Anyway, never mind. Mine is
the show I've been talking about nonstop.
Well, you just tell me to watch it. You don't spoil it for me because you want me to watch it.
That's true.
Anyway, here, you talk about yours first.
Okay,
then.
Well, my best book that I read was Station 11, which I read in a single day. Actually, I read it at the same time I read all the Josefina books. I read all of them in one day. But it's apocalyptic, it's basically this pandemic hits the earth and only 1 in every 250 people survive or something like that. So it's mass casualties. It's crazy. And then it was a 5-star book, and then I binge watched the show on HBO. Tell your mom it was not during work hours. I was binge watching it on my own free time.
Good. I'm glad.
This show was way better than the book was. They made
really?
They made a few minor changes that wound up being very massive changes, and it everything was for the better.
And people love that book.
Yeah.
So that's a high bar.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Wow. All right. Well, my favorite read was kind of in the opposite direction because it was about the Civil War.
Okay.
And it was The Angry Wife by Pearl S. Buck, who is most famous for The Good Earth and writing about China.
Oh.
So this is like very off-brand
It's like
for her.
Lisa C. writing about
The Civil War.
Yeah.
But it was really good. It was just about like a family that lives in West Virginia. So like, you know, in the borderlands and how they differ and how they like, none of them are able to get over the aftermath of the Civil War, but for like different reasons. So it was quite good and randomly on Kindle Unlimited. So if any listeners have Kindle Unlimited, you can read that for free.
That's pretty slight.
Yeah.
I'm listening to an audiobook right now.
Classic Erin behavior.
You know, off Libby, gotta love it. And I've been really enjoying it. So it's called Such a Bad Influence. And which is crazy because I just finished listening to Such a Fun Age.
I was going to say.
It's a different book. I keep getting the titles mixed up.
It's giving Such a Fun Age.
But it's basically like this child YouTube star turned like influencer goes missing.
Okay.
And it's all about like what happened and all of that. But what's really cool is, remember how I talked about how much I like the Daisy Jones and the Six audiobook because they have different like voice actors?
Yes.
They do that for this because it's like, it's normal chapters and then it's like an excerpt from this podcast on influencers, and they have different hosts, and then they're like a blog, and they have like Reddit commenters, and like it's really cool.
Oh, that
I like it a
sounds
lot.
great.
I like the book so far. I'm about halfway done with it, so I don't really know what's like the outcome yet, but
Nice.
I'm a fan.
I have just finished reading a book called Hood by Emma Donoghue. I've brought up on the podcast
Classic
before.
Grace behavior.
Emma Donoghue is my favorite author, and I haven't read all of her books, so I've decided I would like to do that. This was like the second book she ever put out. It came out in like the mid-90s. And unlike a lot of her other work, which is definitely leaning hard into the historical, this is a contemporary, or like, you know, contemporary for the 90s, about a woman who is in the closet in Ireland and her partner has just passed.
Oh.
So it's about being a widow when no one knows that you are one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it was a very, you know,
Not
interesting
happy
and
book.
contemplative read.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to look into that. That's really good.
Yeah. Well, speaking about the topic of grief, should we dive into Josefina?
You know, that's my favorite topic. I think we should.
Yes.
Let's hit us with that synopsis.
Okay, so obviously we read a series of books. Each American Girl has 6 books. So that is true of Josefina. We read all 6. I have the synopsis for the first one, but I feel like it gives the theme overall. The first book is called Meet Josefina, so that's what you're doing.
Before we meet Josefina, I think it's important to say that we originally were not going to read all 6 of one girl. We were going to read a different one from 6 different girls.
Well, we talked about it. I was like, okay, we know we have to do American Girl. Do we want to read one whole girl? Do we want to read, because I was like, reading 2 whole girls, that's 12 books. That's way too much. Yeah.
Would
Do
it
we
take
want
me
to
2
read
days?
3 from 2, 2 from 3, 1 from 6? Like, but then we're just like not getting a whole portrait, and that's really what we wanted.
Yes. And as we do, to call back to our season 1 theme of Around the World, we do try to be representative in the books we're picking. Mm-hmm. So this one was a big help for that, because a lot of, at least what we're familiar with in terms of children's historical fiction, is very like U.S. centric, but this was actually before New Mexico was part of the U.S., correct?
Yes, we're going to get into that, the kind of interesting history of who owned the land that is now New Mexico.
So that is coming later.
Yes. So here's the synopsis for Meet Josefina. Josefina Montoya is growing up on a rancho near Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1824. Ever since Mama died a year before, Josefina and her 3 sisters have been struggling to carry on without her. One bright fall day, happy news arrives. Their beloved grandfather is returning home after a long trading trip. Josefina knows that he will bring exciting stories and wonderful treasures from his journey. But this time he brings something more, a great surprise that Josefina and her sisters have never even dreamed of.
Yes, so I think that does set it up well for this series. The books are like connected with a very easy plot for children to follow.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of elaborate on that. The surprise is Josefina and her sisters are recovering, you know, almost a year after the death of their mother. And their grandfather comes home with their Tia Dolores, their mother's sister, who they have not met before. And she comes to stay at the rancho. And so all 6 books in kind of varying capacities are about Tia Dolores and Josefina and learning to move on from that grief, but still keep your loved one present in your life as you move forward.
Which is why we are speaking of grief today.
Yes, it's very interesting because it's very central to Josefina, and you would not necessarily think that for a children's book, that would be the direction that they would choose to
it's
go.
a lot of what we're reading this season, and I guess it's probably true throughout a lot of children's literature, but you might not recall it as much, deals with very heavy subject matter.
Absolutely.
So, and I think it takes even more, this is a conversation for later, but I think it takes even more skill on the part of the author to execute that.
Definitely. So before we dive too deep into Josefina, let's talk about the authors. So obviously these books were part of the American Girl line. So they came out paired with a doll and various doll accessories that you could buy. We can talk about the capitalism of that a little later if we want to. I don't know how much we do. But the author of all 6 of the Josefina books is a woman named Valerie Tripp. She is very interesting because she does not have a personal website and her Wikipedia page has no citations. So
I love that.
Yeah, so it has a ton of flags. Like, it has one citation to her personal website, and I'm like, oh, great. And I go to click on it, and it's like, this website does not exist. So I had to do a lot of hunting and pecking. But Valerie Tripp is from Maryland. She was born in the 1950s, and she met the founder of American Girl, is a woman named Pleasant Rowland. When Pleasant hired Valerie to write a bunch of materials for a kids' reading program.
Okay.
So later when Pleasant Rowland came up with American Girl, she already had this relationship with Valerie Tripp.
Networking.
And she reached out to her and said, I have this great idea. I want you to write the books. So Valerie Tripp wrote the books for the first 3 original American Girls, and they were Molly, Kirsten, and Samantha. And then she also later wrote for Felicity, Kit, Mary Ellen, and Josefina.
That is crazy that she is like the powerhouse writer behind all of these, and there's nothing about her.
No, like, girl, have a website.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then this is also, this is an audio medium, our podcast, but I just want to add a little bit. There are 2 illustrators that are part of the Josefina books. That is Susan McAlally and Jean-Paul Tibbles. Jean-Paul has a very minimalistic website. It's very just much like pictures of his art, and then it's like, you can email me if you want more. So I did not.
Much like the podcast email, fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com.
Exactly. I did not email Jean-Paul. Susan has a very fun website. It seems like once she graduated from art school, like, American Girl was like her first like big gig. And now she works as a spirit medium. So there you go. She seems very nice. But yeah.
Wait. Huh?
Are you on Susan's website?
Yeah, what? What is it about? Oh, they're just really haunting drawings.
Yeah, well,
what
she
are they
sends,
for? Are these like the kind of like girls on Etsy you could say, draw my soulmate?
I think it's not quite to that level, but she does
Grace,
sell
I hope
art.
you know you're fucking getting this for your birthday.
She sells art, and it is related to her spirit medium work.
Yeah, you can commission her. Your guides know you are contacting me and will show up when invited. Yeah. Happy birthday, Grace.
Well, also all of that, and she still has American Girl in the bio on her website. She was giving me so much more info than Jean-Paul.
Honestly, that's incredible. I was not expecting that, but good for her.
So, little fun fact. And as you said, Erin, this was your first foray into the American Girl world.
Yes. So I very much strike people as the kind of individual who is obsessed with American Girl. Actually, when I logged all of these on the Storygraph, my friend texted me. She's like, are you rereading all of the American Girl books? I'm like, actually, it's a first-time read. Yeah,
and not all of them, just Josefina.
So I had never read them. Of course, I was like familiar with them. I had rich friends who had them. The dolls, not the books. But I did have, so when I was like, the appropriate age for like an American Girl doll is what, like 6? For like a 6 to 8-year-old? Yeah,
the books are probably for like at most like a 3rd grader.
But the dolls themselves, yeah.
I guess the same.
So one of my grandmothers is very much not present in my life, but she decided to get me and my sister the look-alike dolls, and I was like a 2-year-old. Which is
young.
Way too young. And obviously, like, she probably didn't know what age I was because she didn't care. But anyways, so it used to scare the shit out of me. And we have, like, home videotapes of me picking it up by the air and flinging it across the room. And I remember I told that story one time, and someone was like, don't you know how expensive that was? And I'm like, I was literally 2 years old.
Like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
Which is why you wait until someone is, like, in kindergarten before you give it to them.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's my only experience. But I did have a friend who had the dolls with, like, a ton of accessories, which I'm
that's
like,
where the money is.
That's money.
Mm-hmm. I never had any of the dolls, but I was very much one of the book girls. However, I'm in an interesting position because when I was younger, I did not read Josefina. So I am very like familiar with the format of American Girl, but I was not familiar with the story of Josefina specifically.
Famously, for my library school graduation party, it was book character themed, and Grace did go as an American Girl doll.
Yes, I was Molly.
And I was Madeline.
And on another occasion, when we went to the Library of Congress Literary Costume Ball, I was Samantha. So I have done it 2 times. I have to be, the dolls that are white with brown hair.
Halloween costume. We all go as American Girl dolls.
Oh my God, beautiful.
Santiago can be Josefina's father.
Papa,
exactly. We can all be different characters.
Or he can be the husband of the oldest sister who we never meet one time.
Or the evil goat. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. Okay, Josefina does not have a movie affiliated with her.
Unfortunately, that's very sad. Maybe for a bonus episode, we'll do... Felicity has a movie, Kit has a movie that got like a theatrical release.
Oh, I remember
Samantha
that,
has a very good movie about children's labor rights. So,
okay.
Samantha using her wealthy powers for good, but we don't need to go into that now.
Okay. I think we need to get our disclaimer out of the way, which is our judgments come based on the book and characters within them, rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on. I do feel like a bit throughout this series, and I'm about to contradict myself with like the next 3 books we're reading for this podcast. I feel like we might not be as judgmental towards the characters because it is like a children's book.
Yeah.
However, there are some evil characters coming up.
Erin's ready to judge.
So I am ready to judge. And also, we should have probably said this at the beginning. Our discussions will probably be a bit briefer this season. Our discussions will probably be a bit briefer this season because a lot of the books are just simply not that dense and not that, like, thematically heavy.
That's why we anticipate there being more episodes this season, because we think that they will be shorter than normal. Except maybe not this one because it's the first of the season and we've already talked for a while.
We've already been going for like 15 minutes. We're just strictly yapping today. We need to catch up as if we didn't see each other last night to go see Twisters.
Anyway, so real quick, before we start talking about plot, I just want to lay out there are 6 books. Later on, American Girl deviated from this setup, but the time that Josefina came out, they were going through a strict format with each of the orders and titles. So the books are in this order: Meet Josefina, Josefina Learns a Lesson, Josefina's Surprise, Happy Birthday Josefina, Josefina Saves the Day, Changes for Josefina.
Did you just recite those all from memory?
Of course I did.
She was not even looking at the computer. I was very impressed.
Girl, I had box sets. I could tell you that Kit Saves the Day went number 5.
Oh my God.
But yes, so frankly, once you read them all, especially if you read them all in one day like Erin does, they do kind of run together because they follow, Josefina and Tia Dolores especially very closely. Yeah. And that same through line of grief and learning how to live without their mama, but keeping her memory in their life. And then, of course, the point of American Girl is not to talk about like a specific event per se, but to just be like, you are a little girl reading this book. If you were a little girl in Mexico in 1824, exactly, this is what you would do every day.
And something that I've noticed with the books I've read for the season so far, they all seem to have like a history section at the end or like a Q&A so kids can like learn more, which I think is great because I always encourage that. And a lot of these, maybe not American Girl, but a lot of them, the books we're reading this season are read in school. So I think that's important. Something that I really liked, 2 things I really liked about Josefina's history section specifically. The first one is, like you were saying, like the book is clearly meant to be like, if you were a girl in this situation. And that's the vibe I got from the history sections as well. It carried on that messaging of like, this is day to day, like this was this. And I thought that was just very, I don't want to say very appropriate, but it followed suit. It's appropriate for the book. It follows suit very nicely. The second thing I really liked was that they had a Spanish glossary as well with any words of like, and I think this might have actually been at the beginning of the book and not the end, I don't remember, but of any notable words that would come up.
Yes. So they had the glossary of Spanish words. Josefina's books, obviously we read them in English, but they published them in Spanish, which they did not do for the girls prior, so that, little girls who were fluent in Spanish could read them in that language if they wanted to or needed to. Mm-hmm. And they also have this little disclaimer at the beginning of every book, which I will read to you. Josefina and her family speak Spanish, so you'll see some Spanish words in this book. If you can't tell what a word means from reading the story or looking at the illustrations, teaching girls to use context clues,
Yes.
you can turn to the glossary of Spanish words that begins on page 68. It will tell you what the word means and how to pronounce it. Remember that in Spanish, J is pronounced like H. That means Josefina's name is pronounced Josefina.
I love that.
So you're going right up front being like, there will be some girls who read these books who are very familiar with Spanish, but there are girls who are going to be reading these books who are not familiar with it, and we are going to teach them.
Which is great.
So that is in the spirit of sharing culture, of education, and we are all about that.
Yes, I like that a lot. Where do you want to start?
Let's talk about the through line. Let's talk about the grief narrative, because I think that's the thing that sticks out here the most, that we most need to touch on.
And you could just leave me here with the mic and I could talk about this for like 5 hours. So this is a very personal subject for me as someone who's lost a parent, not at the young age of Josefina, but still, it's never easy. And just imagining that as a child and how to communicate those emotions to a child is so difficult. And I feel like there's so much, you don't see that at all. Or if you do, it's like a Disney princess who, she's not dealing with grief. Her parents are just gone. But it's done so beautifully in this, and just so many different ways of learning that you never truly lose someone. You just find ways to kind of evolve around their absence while still making it a part of who you are.
And the thing about that is, there is not ever a point in any of the books where, like, in the first book, Josefina is sad, and in the sixth book, she's not sad anymore. Like,
no, she doesn't, quote, heal.
No, she, gradually heals, but also she gradually finds she comes up against new rocks all of the time. The sisters face their first Christmas without their mama, and they're like, we've never had it. What do we do now that Christmas is here?
Yeah.
I have written down here, so I might as well just say my favorite moment in the books is in Josefina Learns a Lesson, the second book. Mm-hmm. Tia Dolores comes, is staying at the rancho, and she realizes that none of the sisters can read or write. Mm-hmm. And she says, I will teach you how to read and write. And one of the sisters is really upset by that. She says, our mama did not know how to read and write, so this is just one more change. Like, if we keep changing, we're not going to remember her at all. Mm-hmm. And so Josefina is very torn because she wants to know how to read and write, but she doesn't want to disrespect the memory of her mama. And then she realizes, and Tia Dolores teaches her, that you can use reading and writing to remember the people that you love, and you can hold those memories even dearer. And that's
such an important message, even just beyond the grief aspect, but like for encouraging reading and writing, primarily for young girls who are reading this. Like, it's important to me. Yeah.
So those themes, I thought they were presented differently in each book in a way that seemed like not difficult, not shoehorned. They were surprisingly nuanced portraits in my eye.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the thing that kept like catching my eye every single one.
Mm-hmm. And in the sixth book, not to go too far into spoiler territory, but Papa and Tia Dolores get married.
Oh my God. I laughed so hard because there was like a note in the book that was like, this was normal at the time. Don't be weirded out.
Yes. If your dad marries his dead wife's sister, it's okay.
They're like, that's fine. Yeah. You're allowed to be excited.
But then also funny. It's like, Josefina is like, I want Tia Dolores to stay because I love her and I want her to be happy and I want Papa to be happy, but I don't want to like erase my mom like she was never here. So and you don't get the sense at the end that Josefina is done with her journey, but you do know that she will be okay and she'll be happy in her life.
What? Oh my God, we were just talking about a book that was like, they're going to be okay. I forgot what, that was from last season.
Or that meme that's like, girl, that's going to be okay.
Probably that meme. Yeah, no, it's true. It is. You don't, and it's because grief like is such a journey. You're not, God, I'm talking cliches now, but you're never going to get over it. Like some days are going to be really bad and Josefina's going to have those moments that are really dark. And she's also going to have these really light moments. And it's nice to know that I'm getting like teary over a fictional character, but like she has a support system in place. Yes. And that's like, people don't always get that.
And let's talk about that, because another thing that I was really surprised by, one of the other cute things that I love about American Girl, because the pictures, I do love the pictures.
Oh my God, I said I love the pictures. Yippee!
Yeah, they're so adorable. They're so sweet. There will be like full page pictures, but even there will be like you know, a description of like Josefina and her sisters are at the river doing the washing, and there will be like a tiny margin drawing of the wash tub. So you know, like if you were a girl in New Mexico, this would be how you do laundry, you know. But they have portraits of each character in the book at the very beginning.
I love that.
Love it. So I open up the first book. Like I said, I'm not familiar with Josefina, and I see that it's Josefina and she has 3 sisters. And I'm like, 4 sisters in like these teeny books that are all like maximum like 75 pages. I was like, the sisters are just going to be like a monolith. They're just going to be like one big lump of like the sisters. But they were all so different from each other.
Agreed.
And I thought that was like an incredible feat to squeeze that in with the limited page count.
Oh yeah, I agree.
They were all distinctive, and they all like had different like things to do in each story.
I do. They were very unique. I firmly believe that had these books been longer, or if I had read them a bit like more recently, I would remember all of their names because they are very unique. Right now, of course, I don't.
Yeah. Well, frankly, I could not name the sisters at the moment, but I'm like,
they were all very distinct. Like I know like, what sister was doing what.
Yeah, it's almost like a boy band. It's like there's Josefina, who's the shy one. There's the oldest sister, who's the responsible one. Yeah. There's the youngest sister, or the next youngest sister, who is the like one that wants to like go flirt with boys and dance. And then there's the like stick in the mud annoying sister who wants to stay in and do her weaving.
Yeah. No, it was so good. I really liked it. I loved the small details that really set the historical scene. One I had to laugh at because I need to know if you clocked it also. The cooking rock. So it's a hot topic of conversation amongst us because Santiago, as many Hispanic households do, has a rock that he cooks with and he like mashes stuff with.
The cooking rock.
It's literally he found it on the street outside. He washed it
and cleaned it. Yeah,
it is clean. And so Grace always makes fun of his cooking rock because it's just like it's just a rock off the street. It's so funny. However, when his parents came to visit, they brought him one and they're like, "Do you need this?" And he's like, "Oh, of course, I have my own cooking rock." So Josefina had a cooking rock that she used to mash stuff to make something with.
To be fair, I don't mock the cultural idea of the cooking rock. It is simply just funny.
It's the fact that it was just a rock found out on the street.
And now like, it has a new life.
Now that it's on the streets of Washington, D.C. Like, that's what's funny about it.
He didn't even go, like, get it in the mountains. It was just like...
It's just a literal DC street rock.
Santiago would, like, not us making this whole episode about him because we were like, he could be a storm chaser, but also he would be so prepared if he had to, like, prepare all his food like you had to in 1824.
Oh, yeah.
Like, also, you know,
he
like,
would thrive.
The big preserved ham that you had on the counter for, like, 8 months or whatever, that you had a specific knife to just, like, carve pieces off of.
In our friend group, if there was, if our friend group was living in the timeline of Station 11, well, you and I would have killed ourselves. We would not be dealing with an apocalypse.
No.
There are 2 people who would thrive. 3, kind of. Jen would maybe thrive, but she wants a cozy bed to go home to at night. Ashley, obviously.
Ashley's ready to do it right now. She has her knife on her.
Santiago would hate it, but he would adapt so quickly. Like, he would hate not having, like, his phone to scroll on, but he would adapt so quickly to it.
He would thrive similarly to Ashley. He would just bitch and moan about it.
Yeah, which is fair, because who wouldn't?
Which is to be your right.
But anyways, we are way off track now. This is not going to be a short episode. Okay, the later books definitely get less eventful as the series go on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a trend. Oh, there's something I want to ask about with American Girl.
Okay.
So, obviously, a big part of Josefina's culture is Catholicism. So there's this whole part with, like, Christmas, and they do the whole parade where they're, like, going around to the houses like Mary and Joseph. And I couldn't tell if it's just because Josefina is notably Catholic, but do all the books have kind of a, like, religious aspect to it? Like, do the other girls?
I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure they do. They still put out new historical girls. The one that they released, like, right after I got too old for them was their first, like, Jewish doll.
Yeah.
But I will say the books also, even though it's very confusing because they don't have it, like, on the title, on the covers, like the way that we were talking about how Babel had all the different titles.
Yeah.
But they are, like, seasonal. Like, Meet Josefina is spring, and then Josefina Learns a Lesson is fall.
Yep.
So it's, like, very much tied to the... So at this time, like, I'm just opening this up. Certainly the first handful of girls were all Christian. and they would do Christmas. Kirsten, they did like the Swedish Christmas where you wear the wreath that you put the candles in. I just remember that very clearly. But they also had, at this time, they had Kaya, who was Native American.
Okay.
And she was the first one that they broke form for. So she did not have like Meet Kaya, Kaya Learns a Lesson.
Gotcha.
Like her titles were different. I think she still had Meet Kaya and Changes for Kaya, but all the rest of them were
And I mean,
different.
I'm not opposed to the religion aspect being heavy, because if you think about it, a girl in New Mexico in like the 1840s, 50s, like Catholicism's going to be a big part of her life.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's wrong, and it didn't come across as like moralizing to me. I was just curious if that was a thread in other ones as well.
I think it's kind of the same way that we talked about lessons in chemistry and the feminism angle. Bear with me because I know that seems like a stretch. Where we're like, this is a great thing to read if it's a piece of your puzzle.
Yeah.
Like, I think at the time they were all Christian stories.
Yeah.
I think now they've kind of realized more, once we have like girls of all of the other religions, that's an important aspect to learn about because it's central to world culture.
Yeah.
But if you just, if you read Rebecca, the Jewish doll also, and then Kaya, the Native American doll, and
Yeah, you get a piece of it.
Yeah. And it's very like, you do not go into the like beliefs necessarily. You're just like, on the 12 days of Christmas,
it's like
this
cultural
is what you
traditions.
do.
Yeah, it's very much not like you have to subscribe to these views and go to confession and confess your sins. Like all of that. Yeah, no,
it was very.
It's a very much like my family goes to church on Christmas. We do this. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do want to add, the main plot of the Christmas book is that the sisters have this doll that their mama made, and they pass it down when each one of them turns 8. Mm-hmm. So the oldest sister had it until the next youngest sister turned 8, and then she gave it to her. And this is the year that Josefina should have it, but the sister who has it doesn't want to give it to her because it's like,
So she should just go buy a brand new American Girl doll.
Well, it's like a remnant of their mama,
Yeah.
And then, of course, it all gets resolved, and the sister decides, like, I'm going to give the doll to Josefina for Christmas. And they have sewn an outfit for the doll that is identical to one that Josefina has.
So cute.
And it was adorable. However, I'm like, this is so promo for getting a doll that looks like you.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like, that is the selling point. Like, look, Josefina has a doll that looks like her.
Why don't
so
you
should get a doll that looks like you. So that was funny to me.
I know I literally just said at the beginning, when we talked about our disclaimer, that it might be harder. Like, some of the characters might not be quite as evil as some ones in past seasons. However, there is a true villain in this book, and it is the evil goat.
The evil goat.
Who knocks her to the ground.
And eats her mama's flowers.
Yeah. The goat was like, she was beefing with a goat. I think that was the first one.
It was the first and the second one.
Yeah, she was beefing
Flop-ecita?
with the goat. I think so. I have some crazy notes. Sorry, I'm distracted. But yeah, so she's beefing with the goat and then like cares for the goats, like the goat's child becomes her friend.
The Flop-ecita, the evil goat.
So evil for no reason.
She gets cosmically punished by dying in childbirth. It is so sad.
It is true.
I'm like, because when they introduce her, it's very much like, Josefina to me is kind of a unique central character because she's like kind of shy and like afraid of things. I feel like really often in these books for girls this age, you get like a really spunky main character who wants to be, like very Felicity coded.
Yes.
And Josefina's not like that. A lot of her like journey is like overcoming her fears. Like in the Christmas book, like they want her to sing a hymn in church and she's like too afraid. And, so I'm like, oh, they set up her nemesis is Flop-ecita the goat. And you're like, okay, this is going to last throughout the whole thing. And she's going to like befriend Flop-ecita. But no, she dies.
But she befriends Flop-ecita's baby.
Yes, she nurses her back to health, the little baby who's not going to make it. And then she has a little pet goat whose name is in Spanish. And I don't remember it, but it means shadow because the goat follows her around.
I see you have a very interesting note here on our script.
Yes.
And I think you know which one I'm talking about because I didn't pick up on that, but maybe it's because I read all 6 in one day. They all kind of blurred.
I was leaving that for last on purpose because I think it'll take us into the history section, our history section, not the books, pretty well. So there's a plot point where there is a big flood on the rancho and Papa loses a lot of his sheep. So in order to get more money to buy more sheep, Tia Dolores decides that all of the women are going to weave a lot of blankets that they can trade at market. Great plot point. Mm-hmm. Women in business.
It's giving pachinko.
Yeah, so they establish that they're all going to get down to the weaving, but Josefina is the littlest one, and she doesn't know how to weave. So Tia Dolores is like, my servant Teresita will teach you how to weave. And you're like, okay, like, there are classes, like, people have certain, whatever. But then they established Teresita is Navajo, and when she was a child, she was kidnapped from her family, and that's all we know. And she never sees them again.
I did not pick up on that one.
It's like one sentence. And I was like, what the, and I made sure to write it down because I was like, knew I was in charge of researching this. But they're like, Teresita was kidnapped by enemies of the Navajo. And I'm like, interesting. I wonder who they would be.
Yeah, right?
Who are the enemies of the Navajo? There's another, there's some interesting things that they say at the end of these books about who are the enemies of who. But that's the main thing. Like, I don't think what they present us, obviously the history is like basic.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's wrong. I think you need to start from somewhere when you're a child.
Oh, yeah.
You should get the basics.
And I don't think you necessarily need all the really hard stuff.
Well, I was just going to say, like, what is there is fine. There's just basically no indication of any kind of Native American presence.
Yeah.
Which I am not sure if that would be the typical experience. I mean, I suppose for a girl this young, it might be.
Yeah.
Who's like living, on a rancho, not near like a huge town center or anything like that. Like they say they're a distance away from Santa Fe. And at this time, a lot of the Native American communities were either nomadic or living in their own like dense pueblos,
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought that was a really wild thing to throw in the lore.
In there. Yeah.
Yeah, the lore on Teresita.
So, good time to transition to research section?
Yes, good time to transition. So, the most interesting thing about these books is that they are set in 1824 New Mexico as part of American Girl.
Oh, apologies. I did say she lived in the 1850s. That was my incorrect error.
Oh, 1824. And New Mexico was not part of America in 1824.
Cool.
Yes. So, well, first of all, I think that's a good thing that they included it anyway. Yeah. I'm sure they were basically like, well, this land will be New Mexico, so it doesn't matter. But I like that maybe accidental implication of like, what is America? Like,
yeah, it opens up a broader conversation.
Yeah.
That they didn't mean to open up.
Yes. So New Mexico was part of Mexico. Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. There is one of the books, a white guy from Missouri comes to trade, and Josefina is like, this guy is so weird. So no wonder, because New Mexico is not part of America. So I'm just going to go over kind of a little bit of the before and after Josefina's time history of New Mexico. So like I said, the books kind of skate around the presence of Native Americans in New Mexico. So first to be indigenous to that area were the Pueblo Native Americans, who are, have the like clay built like homes that we all think of when we think of the word Pueblo. I say all, that's very generic, for maybe like for unknowledgeable public school people. And then later the Navajo and the Apache kind of migrated down from the Canada-ish area. The Pueblans are kind of today, they're like, oh, there's East or West Pueblans. The East Pueblans are the New Mexican ones.
Gotcha.
And they live in their permanent settlements, and they have their own little governments in each community. And they mostly farm. The Apache and the Navajo were more nomadic. They had livestock.
Gotcha.
Yes. And then when Spain came over to colonize the New World, they claimed the area that would become New Mexico as theirs in kind of the mid-1500s. And then in the 1610, and not the 1610, and in 1610, they founded the city of Santa Fe, which is, as of today, the oldest U.S. state capital.
Wow.
Yeah. And ironically, Phoenix, Arizona is the newest U.S. state capital, which is very interesting. And I'll say, I looked this up because I wanted to know. Richmond, Virginia is the 5th oldest state capital. And between Santa Fe and Richmond is like 170 years.
Wow.
It's a big gap. And that's not from when the city was founded. It's from when it became the capital.
Wow. Okay.
So there you go. Spain had ownership over the land that would become New Mexico and more for about 200 years. In 1810, the settlers there kicked off the Mexican War of Independence. And this is very interesting to me. This is partially fueled by the, at the time, occupation of Spain by Napoleon.
Oh.
And they were like, well, we don't like him and we weren't happy with this anyway.
Oh,
so let's just be independent. And they won in 1821, so 3 years before Josefina's books that we read. And so then New Mexico becomes part of Mexico.
Great.
Yes, and that lasts for not that much longer. So then there was the Mexican-American War, which we know a lot of that sparked over areas of Texas.
Yes.
But New Mexico kind of got brought into the fray. And in 2 separate land purchases after winning that war, the United States bought the land in 1848 and 1854 that would become New Mexico. New Mexico became a state formally in 1912. I don't know why there was such a long period of time in between those two things.
It was territory.
I looked it up and I couldn't find a satisfying answer, although I did see that the New Mexicans wanted to merge with Arizona, and Arizona said no. So don't know why.
Okay, well, that's great.
I guess there's some beef there. But the only other thing that I really wanted to highlight here is there was a quote from the history section of Meet Josefina, and the quote is that I wrote down exactly: "Over the years, the Indians and the settlers slowly learned to live as neighbors."
I don't think that's what happened.
They did not. There was a period of time during the Spanish settler early era where the Navajo Native Americans actually managed to completely expel Spain from the area for like a decade.
Wow.
Yes. And then, of course, in the 1800s, there was the famous Geronimo, who fought very valiantly against being kicked out of their land, and that did not work out for them, as we can see. But there was not ever a sense of complacency by the Native Americans with their plight in New Mexico by first the Spanish, and then the Mexicans, and then the Americans.
Weird to insinuate.
Yes. But otherwise, there was not really anything glaring that stuck out to me. A lot of the history, honestly, that they offer is like almost like media culture, object culture. Like they're showing you like photos of things.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, that's supposed to be very day-to-day life, which I think is really smart and I enjoy.
So it's time to get into our star calculator. Grace is coming with some ideas for how we should change it. I know she said I was coming with some ideas. I am not. I am just open to being influenced right now.
Well, you can have ideas as we're talking.
I'll have ideas as we go.
I just felt nervous about like not coming up with ideas.
No, that's fair. And I think so much of it is going to be shaped by the conversation we just had. So as our listeners know / don't know if they're new listeners, hi. Our categories for our star calculator, based on a scale of 1 to 5, are historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. Now, it is important to note that we are not the target audience of these books that we're reading, and this calculator we've been using has been at adult and a little bit of YA in the past. So we do think it's important to adjust it to be a bit more reflective of what we're reading. However, at the same time, we are trying to be mindful not to be caught up in the, oh my God, nostalgia, 5 stars mindset. Or at least I know I would fall into that.
Yeah, we have to work on that. Here is my proposal for the star calculator.
Okay.
I think we should keep 3 of the categories as is.
Okay.
Historical accuracy, characters, and the most important category, vibes.
Agreed.
I have some proposals for what to do with the others, and we can discuss them. Okay. So I think prose we should replace with story.
Yes, absolutely.
I think they can go hand in hand, but I think the specific language and like the craft of the sentence structure is like still important, but in a less, you know,
it has to be accessible
manner
to children. Okay, I'm literally changing it to story because that 100%, yeah.
Okay, and then I was not sure how to phrase this really well, so you can use your powers for good to help me put it into
my associate manager communications title.
Exactly. To help me put this into like a little pithy phrase.
Okay.
But what I have written down is educational value / moral / lesson. So I don't
And which one is this replacing again?
Originality. So my idea for that is like what concept, and I don't mean that as like what is the moral of the story or like what
it's like
educational value do you have? I mean like what are these books giving to the children who read them? And the idea is for Josefina's, that would be the grief story.
Yeah.
And it would be a day-to-day life story.
I like that. Maybe theme?
Theme is strong.
Theme?
I
Let's
like
do theme. Because
do
that
we
kind
think Well, theme is one thing. Do we think we can let go of originality for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think children will read the same book over and over if they're into a subject.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, if you're not a little girl who speaks Spanish or lives anywhere near New Mexico or has any, and you've just learned how to read and you're reading Josefina, you're not looking for originality. You're looking to be introduced to like basic concepts.
Yeah.
So I think that in this case, that can be a more valuable tool. I like theme.
Sorry, I'm just updating our spreadsheet. We'll have to go back to the originals at some point. But in 34 books from now. Okay, so would you like to start with your rating?
I'm trying to think. You know how harshly I judge historical accuracy and how strongly I feel about round numbers. But I feel like I want to go, I guess I'll go 4.
4. Okay.
And the point deducted is strictly for the Native American issue. I was gonna say. Yeah, because I was like, otherwise I think the bases that are covered are solid for what American Girl is trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I'm also not even in the same tab as you, so my final result will be a mystery to me. Theme, strong 5.
Okay.
Josefina gives me what it needs to give. In fact, I think it does a little better even than some of the other American Girls that I could compare it to. Characters, I am going to give this one a 4. I think just the format of this prevents them from going quite to 5 level. But like I said, I was really impressed with the way that like all of the sisters were different. But I will say, Josefina's oldest sister, for example, we are told in the first book that she has 2 sons and we don't meet them till the 6th book and they all live in the same place. Mm-hmm. So it's just like an example of like, there's only so much work that these books can do in their like 75 pages.
And also they're focused clearly on one character. Like it's not an ensemble here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Story also 4. I think it'll, you know, it's good. We talked.
And again, this is rating for all 6 of them as a whole. We are not doing individual films.
Yes. And I like them all basically the same. There was a little variation, but like they're, you know, and vibes 4.
4. Okay. And that brings you to 4.2.
All right. And I think the ones that I rated the lowest on Storygraph, I gave it 3.75. And my favorite, which was Changes for Josefina, I remember that, got a 4.25. So that's on the higher end for me, but that's right around where I would say these books are, which is, you know, like a 4.
Okay. All right. For me, I'm going to go the same with you as historical accuracy. I'm going to say a 4 because for the same reason as you can like, in children's books, you have some leeway to gloss over some history, but not to just be like, and it was so fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to get complicated, but it should be true.
I'm going to give I'm going to give theme a 5. However, I'm also going to give characters a 5 because for these short of books focus on one central character, the fact that I could tell all the others apart is like a huge feat.
And that is not true of many of the novels for adults that we have read.
Yeah. Oh, no. What was the one where we just listing their archetypes? That was a good one. Story, I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I think some of it kind of like drags a little bit, but I mean, what do I know? Vibes, I would say 3.5.
Okay.
And that gives me a 4.31, which is actually higher than I rated any of them individually.
Yeah. I think you and I were very similar on the like 3.75, 3.5,
3.75, 4. My lowest was Josefina Saves the Day.
Mm-hmm. I will say, let me tell you about this. This is like I have read other American Girls, so I'm biased. Mm-hmm. There's like a part of Josefina Saves the Day where she's like doing something dangerous for the good of the family, and hers is just like going into town at night. But Kit breaks into jail in her book.
Oh my God.
And Kaya's sister, who is blind, gets kidnapped and Kaya has to go save her. So I'm like, Josefina, that's not really that big a deal.
That wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Okay. You said you had something you wanted, and you said this off air, but you said you had something you wanted to save for the end.
Yes. So I said I had difficulty researching Valerie Tripp, the author, and a lot of the info that I got came from a Q&A that she did with this blogger. And I pulled this quote that I really like, and I think it is kind of emblematic of why we want to do the theme of this season at all. Why we want to do children's books, because we both feel very strongly about them. Yes. And I think this quote from Valerie Tripp, which is long, so bear with me, but really sums up a lot of what we think. So the blogger doing the Q&A asks her, why do you think girls like your books? And the answer is this. I think the stories appeal to girls because they are fueled by understandable humor, shared experience, and common aspirations. They contain relatable mischief and joy, and they offer friendship. They tap into imagination, which is, of course, a branch of hope. The ability to imagine different outcomes, different circumstance, a different life, a different self. They engage children readers where they are, meet their interest, ability, comprehension, and background existing knowledge. But above all, the stories show respect for the reader. Readers are smart enough to understand that in the Kit books, the depression is a metaphor for any loss. Readers saw that my character Josefina's aunt Tia Dolores was like a stepmother, and so they understood Josefina's divided loyalties. Molly's dad went away to war, and their own parents went away to war or to look for jobs. My young readers are sharp. I think they like the books because the books provide them with a vicarious experience. Pleasant has made my heart proud by saying that her favorite book is Josefina Learns a Lesson, because it articulated something she had not realized but loves. And that passage is when Tia Dolores says to Josefina, "Reading is a way to hold on to the past, to travel to places you've never been, and to learn about worlds beyond your own time or experience. Emotion is the captivator and the driving force is friendship. I always think my story must be intimate and infinite, unique and universal."
I love that. I love when an author cares about their readers, especially their young readers. And this is what we always say is when an author trusts us to be smart.
Exactly.
It shows so much respect.
So, we are both sitting here. We are adults that have chosen to study the humanities at a high level. And speaking for myself here, I can attribute that so strongly to reading books like this when I was a child.
Yeah. Yes.
I can attribute it to the encouragement of my parents and my teachers and my school for making me interested in learning.
Yeah.
And it started at the root with me being 6 years old and reading American Girl.
Yeah. And again, not for me specifically American Girl, but other books we'll see this season. Our Storygraph Challenge is live, so we're going to see some Magic Tree House. We're going to see a lot of Dear America, Royal Diaries, all of this whole genre.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and then being, a 6-year-old who reads Magic Tree House turns you into a 12-year-old who reads The Book Thief, turns you into an 18-year-old who goes to Barnes & Noble with money from their first job and buys Hamnet.
Yep.
And that's where we are today. And we are so excited to get into the season.
Well, that was beautiful, Grace. And I hate to jump back, but we did forget to say if this book was five
oh
or
my
flop.
Gosh.
I'm going to go... I was going to go fine leading 5, but because it's a grief book that's so well done, I have to go 5 stars.
I feel like I do too. Even though, did I rate any of the individual books 5? No. American Girl is so, it does so much foundational work.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the stuff that Josefina's books do is really special.
Yeah.
And obviously we have our issues that we talked about with the way that Valerie Tripp set things up, but she understands her job and she knows what she's doing. So, and I just feel like I do want to just give our kickoff a 5. So I'm going to say 5.
I agree. This is the 3rd season in a row I've given our first book a 5.
Well, we pick books that we want to read. So, we'll have an equally as engaging conversation about next week's book.
Yes. And that book is Chains by Lori Halse Anderson.
Yes. Very excited to read.
This is not the only time you will see her this season.
No, I realized I was like, this is the first time we're repeating an author.
I know.
So,
and this doesn't count. If it's all in one episode, it doesn't count.
No. But you can see, you can guess which other Lori Halse Anderson book we'll be reading. But next week we'll be talking about Chains.
Yes, which is during the American Revolution, which is a time period we have not covered yet.
No, and it's a time period that we will be covering more than once this season.
Because children's books fucking love the American Revolution.
It's kind of fun. It's camp.
Anyways, in the meantime, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @5orflop_pod.
And you can also join our Storygraph reading challenge, which this season is very lengthy. And if you have any books that you think we should be reading, you can fill out the recommendation form in the bios of any of our social medias. Thank you to the person who did.
Thank you. We're so sorry we're starting a children's book series right as you put that in.
But if you have any other general queries, you can email us at fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time, happy reading.
Bye.